RP is phenomenal. When can I justify, by the way? Well, being a subject, so we need to break free. No king or shall remain marry a divorced summoner. We'll come independently, leave the allies. Yes, please, please, mom. We'll become independent. Yes, please, Edward, don't change your mind. Wait, we'll rename them. Liberators of the Oman Empire. Yeah, you have to RP your annexations. So what will my RP be for? You guys gotta help me with this, because I have no clue how I'm supposed to RP annexing all of Arabia from the evil dictatorships. True. I'm gonna free them from their kings, like we overthrew our own. Okay, that right there is the RP we're gonna go for. In over a year, we have 1 level of infrastructure in a state where we have 0 building slots. We're free, boys. We're free. We have freed ourselves from our overlords in Britain. Hello, by the way. Hello? Hello? Mr. Stalin?
Joseph Stalin is dead. Russian Empire will live on and continue killing all the communists.
Yeah, right. Yeah, never mind, see you. Fuck off. Come on, Alta. Come on, Alta. I can't. You could go for it already, the justification. He has 4 divisions, three divisions, doesn't matter. So we will start coring shit. Alright, awesome. So we're gonna get manpower from that. We got some manpower from that. Okay, awesome. So hopefully the AI snakes in here, we encircle and kill it. Traditional Oman music, please. Alright. Music of Oman. Alright. This is lost now, boys. There we go. Communist Oman. People's Republic of Oman. Yes. Wait, why am I not in a faction with all the miners? I'm leaving that shit. Well, Hisham ibn Muhammad is our general, and Saad bin Taimur, our old leader, is our field marshal. Alright, let's go. Oh shit. Really? No, we'll hold. The Omani people will hold. Cavalry leader, infantry leader, and mountaineer. Yes. Insane grinded. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean? Wait, UK. Edward. King Edward.
What do you want, communist scum?
Hey. No need for the wording.
This is your fault, not mine.
Italy! Alter, Mann! Nein! Where's everybody here, Alter? Dude, I got so debated going communist here. By Grisha, and that he's like, fuck you, communist, Alter. The great leader of Russia, before you denounce my nation yet again, before me speaking, I would like to make a statement. The British imperialists, along with the Italian fascists, are in Yemen, wreaking havoc upon the Omani people.
What is your name?
The Omani people. We're the people. Well, Yahya ibn Halil.
I think I'll correct you on your name. Your name is a fucking communist pig and you deserve to die!
Okay.
Surprise!
Bruh!
Your name is a fucking communist pig and...
The Omani people. We're the people. Well, Yahya ibn Halil.
I think I'll correct you on your name. Your name is a fucking communist pig and you deserve to die!
Okay.
Surprise!
Bruh! I shouldn't have said anything. Come on, man. I'm literally playing Oman here. Man, look at this. Why is everybody against me? They probably have air volunteers too. Yeah, they do. I'm getting cast. Prime Minister demands Yemen crisis, okay?
This is the Italian Prime Minister. I assume this is the evil dictator of Yemen.
Dictator?
Yes, of course.
I'm following the will of the people here, uniting the people, freeing them from their dictators. You're supporting the dictators.
You see, the Russians and the Italians were both here because we felt that communist aggression couldn't happen, especially so close to my borders. If we can agree that you will pose no threat to any areas in Africa,
No areas in Africa.
and that your focus will stay on the Arabian,
It will stay on the Arabian Peninsula. Yes, it will.
then potentially my volunteers and the Russians will withdraw and we'll enter into a non-aggression treaty.
That sounds great. You go and speak with the Russians. Mr. UK. Mr.
Hello, sir.
Edward. As you might have seen, the Russians have pulled out.
We shall also do that, so we have
Russians?
decided that is no part of a man to die in a desert in
Exactly. Why die for Yemen? Okay, let's go. Oh, stats. Okay, we're killing one division. Amazing. That cavalry seems to be retreating into the pocket. I'm not sure though. Yeah, it did. Alright, awesome. Come on, esports. Esports! Wait, am I gonna get their capital for free? Is this it? Alright, boys. We did it! We need to prepare for the next great war, which is in Saudi Arabia. We need to really prepare for where we need to take. We need to take Mecca. Mecca is ours, man! One demands Mecca to be liberated from this Saudi prince of terror. How is this Omani folk music? Wait, look at this. Yusuf of Oman. Omani techno music. Okay. Omani techno music. French commune? Okay, maybe you can speak now. Hello, France. Mr. Brother Leon. Could you support the Omani people and their struggle to regain Mecca?
Only with guns.
Only with guns. We'll take guns. Allah Akbar. Alright. Yeah, he's walking in. Good. We'll just snake. Alright, we got him. We got him. What? Why is France singing volunteers against me? Hello?
Yeah.
I think you sent volunteers to the wrong nation, Mayor. We got Mecca. Allah Akbar. So, what does a king want with a communist?
I want a non-aggression pact.
You do, huh?
Yes.
Why would I accept this non-aggression pact?
I don't know. Maybe you don't want to die.
The UK does not own you.
They own my oil, which means they own me, kind of. So
And I own all of Arabia's oil. Which means I kinda own you. Well, I think we'll have to settle this the good old-fashioned way. A jihad.
بعطيك كف والله بعطيك كف.
Inshallah, I'll see you later.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Alright, okay, I tried to speak Arabic with a guy who actually speaks Arabic. Not a good idea. How long would it take? He's in a faction with India and oh man. Yeah, not gonna happen. Mr. Edward.
Oh, who's this?
No, you're not Edward.
I am.
Yes, Mr. Edward. If the Omani People's Army would make a intervention in Iraq.
Information has come out that this man, Mr. Ibn Halil, is actually cooperating with the Congolese communists. A threat
Is
to
that
South
so?
They have helped us in the past. Nothing else.
Well, get out there, sir. If you're cooperating with those scums, there's no point talking to them.
Mr. Halil, you see that if you would actually cease to support the Congolese, the king will have an ear for you once more in the Iraq question, sir.
I will accept.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
You attack that oil will go to you, right? And I don't like that, because that's only our source of the oil.
I respect you
fleet.
very much, Mr. Edward.
I wanted to talk about the purchase of Jordan. I
Seems
apologize.
we randomly made the
Wait, sir, you're demanding lands from me now?
You
No,
see
no,
what
I
I'm
want
talking
to
about
buy
here,
it.
yeah?
Why? I want to buy them.
Chicken? He can buy it?
Who should
Did you just call the king a chicken, sir?
Sir,
No.
sir.
Oh!
In Oman, chickens are very highly praised. Like in India, cows are highly praised. Yeah, so the deal goes, People's Republic of Pakistan leaves my faction. Kingdom of Iraq, which does not align with your political beliefs, leaves your faction.
Yeah.
Dealing has been made behind this back. Amazing. Hello.
Hello, Yahya ibn Khalil. Even though you're a communist pig, I thought you had some respect to the treaties we have signed. If you're not going to back down for your claims on Iraq, we're going to declare war.
How about this? If you can make Iraq give Al-Hajara to the
How about
people
this?
of
You
Oman,
will not make any demands.
we'll make these templates. Give up Pakistan for once. Yeah, well, this is the state now of the game. We're gonna babysit so I don't get any bigger. So, the people of Oman would like to negotiate for land.
No.
All I would like to discuss is the situation with Qatar and Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Well, as you see, the king is very busy, Mr. Yahya ibn Khalil, and the thing that would be required to gain Qatar and Kuwait.
Do you
will
speak
be
for your king?
I speak for my king. I'm the king's hand.
Sir, be quiet now.
Does he
I
jerk
can't
off
speak.
with you too?
We can only accept this deal if we get 4 sips and you break your alliance with France.
I will accept. I will accept 4 civs for Jordan and Qatar.
Okay, but can we make it 2 sips and you break your alliance with France?
Okay, that will do. Jordan.
No.
Jordan.
I'm sorry, but I can't trade them for land. Maybe after the war. Who knows?
What do you mean, who knows? Okay, 0 trade. Turkey is at war with Russia. Oh, you crashed on Iraq? Okay, free land.
Yes,
And let's hope Mr. Whatever the fuck his name.
Hey.
No, I have no problem with you as long as you don't support the communist movement of the Congo. Because the Red Cross has just released.
Well, you know, the
additional
deal, you should then support the deal of Jordan. Because the deal of Jordan puts me out of Congo's faction.
I
Wait,
support
what?
that deal.
What? What?
You have to think about the conversations, sir.
I was thinking if perhaps if you joined our faction against the fascist countries, I seeing them just rolling over Europe.
Yes,
No.
I would say yes to that. The
And-
fascist scum has prevented the Omani people from freeing the Iraqi workers' liberation. Yes.
Well, so you lend me fuel, and I will
Yes.
give Jordan for that.
Yes.
Troops.
I am making aggressions against Iran. I'm making freeing processes towards Iraq. Although the Turkish people have guaranteed them.
Hello, we're having a guarantee on the nation of Iraq, and we are not going to allow communists expanding in the Middle East.
In the next 6 months, you will have to show democratic, authoritarian, or fascist
I
demagogue
can
in
do
your
it in the
government.
next 10 days.
So,
Wait, how?
it shall
Alright, I
be
need to
done.
talk with Russia. Russia.
My name is not Russia. My
No,
name is
no.
Konstantin Rodzaevsky, communist pig.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Konstantin Rozevsky, communist pig. I would
You are
like.
communist pig, not me.
Ask for
Don't
your
dare
name.
insult me.
No, you said your name, okay? Listen.
Well, I am not gonna listen to you.
My king, you must react!
What's it direct who, sir?
Dude, you monkey mad king! They just declared war on us, bro! Oman and Russia at war!
You will die for insulting our leader.
Put my hammer down, and you will be out of the allies.
Oh wow, real backstabber. I see. So, would you like to come to a conclusion of this? All right.
my conclusion is you die, I win. Easy. We will make the Jordan easy.
Jordan. So, have you
Yeah.
heard about the city Sagma?
But
We will hold Oman. Actually, do we hold Mecca? I think we hold Mecca. No, we need to go to our capital. The Russians. They didn't backstab us, but they went through neutral nations to get to Iraq. I did not really think that one through when I declared on Iraq. But at the same time, I'm glad I declared on Iraq. Because no matter what we did here, they would keep us at our small nation here.
okay, how about I take all of your land and keep Oman and Aden under you? Will be my puppet.
I don't like that deal. Oh, they didn't.
Hello? Yes.
You become Russian protectorate of the Middle East, and
Yes.
you will be able to say
Russia, I only want these two
Wait,
lands.
what?
no, no,
I want.
no.
Awesome. I like this deal. Fuck you, Iraq! I know you're watching! Fuck you, man! This guy was like, oh, I was like, let's make a peace deal. You get this tile. He was like, no, when I kept you, I will get all of your land. No, you get nothing, Alta. Nothing, man. You sport, boy.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Look. You can still get the city of Sagma. So, great Constantine, can Oman be sent weapons to mobilize the people?
Form your army.
I am forming big army. Oh, I actually love this world map right now. It actually looks so World War I-y. I love it. Yes,
was
you
the one who
got
got
luck. I was gonna give you something, but you know.
Oh, push. First person to Jerusalem takes it.
Right. Oh, I got 8 tanks. Oh, I got it. Seems like, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
my divisions were there first. Boom, boom, boom. Think I broke it? Yes, I'm across.
Dankus literally the best player? Question mark.
Not a question mark, of course I am. Well, we got Al Alamein and Suez. Awesome. I can still get him. I can still get him. I'm getting him. Yeah, I got him. Esports. Esports. Dead. We'll cap Tommy. Why not? Killing the rest of the UK infantry down here. Oh, actually, he might kill. No, he didn't. Good shit.
Oh.
Nah, it's too late. 0 org.
You have lost one tank that was
Hey.
given to you by the Russian High Command.
Don't execute, man. I'm getting him. Yo, dead. There goes the Spanish tank. Yo. Okay, one more
You
replacement
lost
tank.
one tank.
Oh hell no, UK has so much more infantry down here. Ah, overrun. Esports. Yeah, it's fine. I got all the ports covered, and he should be able to annex the AI. Yeah, they only have 3 divisions. It's fine. Making very risky move down here. UK has seen it. I'm killing this right now. Did.
You can continue your Africa campaign alone. Also Europe, we have problems.
Oh, will I actually get them here? This is so sad for them if I do. Run. I see Tommy division. Wow. Oh man, really? I looked away for 1 second. Okay. Amazing. Russia will be very happy. Am I really getting the UK in here? Yeah, I got the 7 UK devs again. Alright, Tommy wanting to get encircled. First thing he does, I guess. He saw it. It's too late.
Egypt naval invasion, Egypt naval invasion, Egypt naval invasion, Oman.
Yeah, last ended, but that will probably not hold still. Tommy thinks he's on the offensive here. That's his mistake. Like,
He always thinks like this.
yeah, but like, look at this. Look what he's doing
But
here.
it's because of Egypt.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's why. I can encircle Tommy's army again here. Like, does he see the tiles are not like are connected? Yeah, they pushed Egypt.
Yo, thanks, you got encircled.
I'm aware, I'm aware. I'm getting it, bro. Am I though? I have stats here to get out. I'll pull back the Jordan line.
Okay, Germany is gonna be dead at some point, so...
Yeah, so is the Africa Corps I have. Russia, I'm down to 5 tanks, all encircled.
Thanks. You
You
think
know-
I expected something else from it?
No, so it's all good. It was kind of fun though to snake Tommy. I did get punished.
Yeah.
I'm role playing as Oman Field Command, okay?
Ah,
Yeah,
okay, man.
peace. It's like a day, but like 1 day, 16 hours. Don't pin me, Tommy. I'll die. Yeah, I got the port. I got the port. Tommy spots, man. Garrison of Oman is coming to Africa.
Dingus, can you elaborate on the one Tommy K, please? 'Cause,
With this micro I'm doing right now, it's uncertain who would win. Thank you.
Yeah, Grisha, I'm
You're dying?
No, I'm not dying. I'm dying. I'm just falling back a bit.
You know, tanks are overrated. Can I get Bhutan?
No, you're gonna get nothing because you're gonna lose it anyway. Press done. Alta, Oman.
You know, it was
Oman,
bad
Alta.
supply. I looked away. You know.
Yo, press done, man.
Oman.
Oh yeah, literally Oman. I thought you were just saying it for yeah. I'm not used to saying Oman. You know what? I will completely abandon the Oman front to go down to South Africa.
Prioritize, okay?
Yeah, I am prioritizing.
No, prioritize your home. You're like the dog in a building
The dog in a.
that is on fire.
Oh yeah.
You're
Oh,
exactly that fucking
I
dog.
thought it was like a Russian expression, like you're a dog in a building, or.
Yeah, you are a dog in a building.
I think the boys are dead. They're
Are you
done
still alive?
Am I
I
alive?
don't even... Yeah, but where are your tanks?
Mine?
Yeah.
Gone. Hey, man! Hey, I'm going home to the homeland.
Hey, man! Ha ha ha! Altavas! Ah! This is what happens when you lose all of your fucking divisions, okay? This will happen if you will lose them again.
Okay. No, I lost my general. Allah. No losing divisions.
Yeah. You finally understood things.
I got the script now. I got the script.
Script?
Yeah, the
It's not
script.
a Bookworm game.
Now, you see, Grisha, I lured them into all the desert tiles where my camels perform at their best.
What about the tanks?
They perform the best while encircled.
And you got everything right. Ankus.
Yeah?
Russian Asian corps are coming.
Oh, I see
you
a
have
lot
that.
of tanks coming.
Each
The Russian tanks are once again in Baghdad.
Yeah. Once again. I think like 3 times. No. They're not gonna get to the port in time.
It's so bullshit, Tankus, you know that.
What is bullshit? You didn't
Russia
take the
snake.
border?
He's getting military to Turkey, yeah, that's bullshit.
I mean, that's how I got capped the first time. You didn't have a problem with it then, did you?
Yeah, but it's different, you know?
Chicken.
Yeah, it's different now, because it's me.
Check-
I did camels with... I did 14-4 camels. Always Tankus
14-4,
does this
just-
every game. Yeah, 14-4 camel divisions. Every time Tankus plays, he does this. Every time, same thing. 14-4 camel divisions is all, man. Tankus
Yeah,
always
yeah.
does this shit. Alright, the RP game seems to be over. I'd say... Not a successful Oman game. I mean, yeah, it's a successful Oman game, honestly. Now, come on, you started with 1 Civ 1 mil. That I have this many men, I'm actually amazed. Like almost half a million men army, and I've taken insane losses. 200k, yeah, like 650k Oman divisions. Hey, chat, I'm gonna call the stream at this. GG. I mean, it was fun at least. That's all that matters. And I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. I'm gonna follow up on more sub goals. I'm making Navy tutorial and shit. Making it? No, I'm making a spreadsheet for it or whatever you want. But hey boys, love you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Say the line.
Dankus.
Oh man, there.
This video is sponsored by Audible, and this is by far the most consumed plant oil in the world. Or at least this is that oil in something closer to its original traditional form. The version used today in processed foods, soaps, cosmetics, biofuels, all kinds of things might look more like this, or maybe like this. It can be refined into innumerable forms, but all of them are fats derived from the fruit of the oil palm. This is by far the #1 edible grease in the whole wide world. This and derivatives of this are in probably dozens of products in your home right now, quite possibly on or in your body. Is that a bad thing? Probably, yeah, I think so. Probably a bad thing, at least from an environmental standpoint, though I'm not at all convinced that the alternatives would be much better, unless you think that stop guzzling so much grease is an alternative. Probably should be. If you're wondering how palm oil ended up in everything and endangered the world, you're in luck because that's the subtitle of the new book, Planet Palm, by longtime food and environmental journalist Jocelyn Zuckerman.
The sort of meat of the fruit is gets crushed, and that's where you get the palm oil. And then inside there's a kernel, and you can also crush that, and you get palm kernel oil. So you get two different kinds of oil from the fruit, and the oil from the kernel is mostly used in cosmetics.
So this is the former. This is oil made from the fruit part of the fruit. It was made in Ghana. The oil palm is native to West Africa, where this has been like the cooking oil for thousands of years. In its relatively unrefined form like this, it tastes real strong. I don't know how to describe it. It's got this sort of bitter thing going on, this very vegetal thing. Kind of has the aroma of my spice drawer. The first thing you probably noticed was the color, right? That color is from carotenoids, the same things that make carrots and tomatoes and salmon orange.
But the stuff that's used in processed foods has been treated in all these different ways so as to make it basically tasteless, odorless, colorless.
The other thing you probably noticed about this is that it is thick.
Palm oil is 50% saturated fat, so it's semi-solid at room temperature.
The oil made from the kernel or seed of the fruit is even more saturated. This is like 80% saturated. This is palm kernel oil. Because they're so saturated, these fats behave more like animal fats, which are generally pretty saturated, right? As a result, they are solid at room temperature or semi-solid at room temperature, and they are less quick to go bad, less quick to oxidize, go rancid. Where I live in the American South, the really abundant oil a century or two ago was cottonseed oil, a byproduct of the cotton textile industry. That oil is mostly unsaturated, so it went bad real fast, and it's liquid, so you can't make soap or biscuits with it. The industrialist who built this house in Macon, Georgia, was among the geniuses who figured out that you could add hydrogen atoms to unsaturated fats, and you can make them more viscous and more shelf-stable, hence crystallized cottonseed oil, Crisco. I have a whole vid about that linked in the description. If instead you get your oil from a palm tree, it's already saturated. There's no need for fancy modern industrial processing. Already saturated. This is a very rare property for a plant oil to have. The oil you get from the giant seed or kernel of the coconut tree is like 90% saturated. What we think of as a coconut, the brown and white thing, that is the coconut's kernel. 90% saturated that fat is. But the coconut palm tree does not yield as much oil as the oil palm tree does. The oil palm's productivity is insane.
In Africa, they're very tall and thin, and people had to climb up them, and it was, often falls would be fatal. The way they're bred now, particularly in Southeast Asia, they don't grow as tall, and the trunks are much thicker. But the original ones look just like a coconut palm. What I found so interesting when I was researching this book was that basically the infrastructure for the slave trade, when the slave trade was outlawed, the British traders started sourcing palm oil and used that same infrastructure. It was particularly in the Niger Delta, sort of swamp area, and then rivers that go up into the interior where the oil palm trees grew naturally. So the canoes that they used to use to shuttle human beings for the slave trade, they then started shuttling palm oil. And it was used during the Second Industrial Revolution for soaps in particular. People were starting to work in factories and going home really dirty, and so soap became a much bigger thing. Also for use in lighting lamps and eventually in margarines.
Margarine. Oil-based butter replacements. Is there anything more emblematic of what food writer Michael Pollan calls the American paradox? His books, like The Omnivore's Dilemma, are available now on Audible, the sponsor of this video. Let's thank them and hear what Pollan means by that.
Speaking of something called the French paradox. For how could a people who eat such demonstrably toxic substances as foie gras and triple cream cheese actually be slimmer and healthier than we are? Yet I wonder if it doesn't make more sense to speak in terms of an American paradox. That is, a notably unhealthy people obsessed by the idea of eating healthily.
If you think you don't have time to read books like these, consider Audible. Listen while you do the dishes or something. If you get an Audible membership, you'll get 1 credit a month for a title in the premium selection. That's new releases and such. You download the title and you own it forever. In addition to that 1 download a month, you get full access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is basically everything else. Thousands of audiobooks, original audio entertainment, guided fitness and meditation, ad-free versions of your favorite podcasts, all ways to get some joy and enlightenment in your ears when you think you don't have the time. You can try Audible free for 30 days. Do you and me both a favor. Go to audible.com/Adam Ragusea or text Adam Ragusea to 500-500. Get that 30-day Audible trial with my link in the description. Audible.com/Adam Ragusea. Thank you, Audible. Now, we were talking about the dubious advent of margarine. Vegetable oil-based butter replacements could be made with naturally saturated palm oil. They could also be made with unsaturated oils that have been partially hydrogenated. The problem with that, of course, is that it results in trans fats, which medical science now regards as basically the worst kind of fat that you can eat. Indeed, Crisco now is no longer made with trans fats, or if there is trans fat in here, it's a very, very small amount. What's in here instead? Well, a few things, but one of them is palm oil. The big push to eliminate trans fats from processed foods is certainly part of palm oil's meteoric rise, but it's not even close to being the whole story. In her new book here, Jocelyn Zuckerman shows how palm oil is popular because, yes, it is naturally well suited to many commercial applications, and because it is extremely cheap. Part of the reason this is so cheap is because of how productive the oil palm is. The yield that you get per acre of cultivated land is insane. It's miles ahead of any other oil crop. But there's another reason this is cheap.
Stolen land, slave labor, big part of it.
The story of the modern palm oil industry begins with the introduction of that African tree into Southeast Asia. Most of today's palm oil comes from Malaysia and Indonesia.
Basically, it grows best 10 degrees to the north and south of the equator. So it's basically that tropical belt around the world.
These are basically the same places where rubber trees grow, and European colonial rubber plantations started to shift to oil palm when synthetic rubber started to eat into their business.
But then after independence, these governments had lots of poor people, and so gave them parcels of land and oil palm seedlings and encouraged them to grow oil palm as I said, a poverty alleviation scheme. And then once the industry learned how to fractionate and process it into all these different uses, then they were able to just sell it more around the world.
The resulting deforestation of vital tropical rainforest has been huge in its contribution to global warming and in its devastation of habitat. You've probably already heard about the whole orangutan thing. Orangutans are the closest living relative to humanity. If you've ever looked at one in the eye, it is straight up like looking at a person. Orangutans are losing their homes to oil palms, though they are hardly the only important species to be affected. How about humans?
So in Malaysia and Indonesia, in particular Malaysia has a smaller population and higher standard of living. So a lot of Malaysians aren't particularly interested in these like menial jobs on the oil palm plantations. So they rely on a lot of imported labor, often from Bangladesh, from Myanmar, Rohingya. And a lot of these folks are brought in under false pretenses. Recruiters come to their villages and say, we can get you jobs in restaurants or in other hotels. They put them on a boat and then they traffic them in, and then they land on these plantations. Often they confiscate their passports, and they have to basically pay off these wages that they've paid to the recruiters in advance, thinking that they're going to get the jobs. And then they're stranded on these plantations, and some of them have had to literally, make escapes under cover of night.
Now, the United States and other countries have banned imports from or otherwise sanctioned certain palm oil producers over these abuses. But Zuckerman's reporting shows how it can be really hard to trace the origin of oil once it gets all blended together in the international commodities market and refining process. So that's what she means by slave labor. What does she mean by stolen land? Well, by way of example, she travels in her book here to Liberia, where the government there is getting its oil palm industry going by renting jungle to big companies. That land is inhabited, but not by people living a modern developed economy type lifestyle. People like that are hard to displace without significant compensation. But people living an older or traditional lifestyle are often less able to assert their rights.
The people who had lived on that land, they got tiny payments, but they now had no place to farm or to live, and they said that the rivers were poisoned because of the agrochemicals. But the government, wanted to use this as a poverty alleviation scheme, and so the governments tend to be on the side of the companies that are giving it. There's also often lots of corruption involved. So the companies are paying government officials who maybe don't care so much about the people who are actually living in these villages or in these forests that are then raised.
In her book, Zuckerman also travels to Central America. Workers there on oil palm plantations are fighting to unionize to improve their horrific working conditions. They get snake bites, they have falls, stuff falls on them, they get covered in agrochemicals, all while making pitiful wages.
I interviewed one man who had tried to come to the States on one of the caravans, and he said, I've worked for this company for 10 years and it's just nothing. You just can't support. He had 3 kids. He said, there's no way to support a family even though I'm working. He was working 6 days a week, basically around the clock.
Now, labor abuses are in agriculture all over the world, but the concentration of the palm oil industry in these equatorial nations, with their particular economic and political problems and histories, probably makes this particular crop more of a center of badness. So, what are you as a conscientious consumer to do? Well, of course, you can try to buy less palm oil. About 2/3 of it gets consumed in foods. The most conspicuous place you'll generally see it is in prepackaged baked goods where they need a shelf-stable, solid fat. But of course, any other vegetable oil is going to have its own problems. They all take far more land to produce oil. That's one of the reasons why palm oil is popular. It doesn't take much land. And honestly, looking at labels will only get you so far, especially considering that palm oil is fractionated and added to 1 million products under 1 million different names. Even if you somehow get all palm oil out of your diet, it's still probably in your bathroom. It's in your toothpaste and your makeup and your shampoo and your moisturizer. You can look for products with an RSPO label. It's conferred by the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil.
When I was in Honduras, I talked to folks on these plantations, and they said the RSPO investigators had just been there, and they said, one, we were coached before they came, we were given a script, this is what we're supposed to say about how great our working conditions are, and then after the inspectors left, they said that those who didn't follow the script were punished or fired. Those who did were given a banquet with soda and food.
In her book, Zuckerman goes to Ecuador and visits smallholder farms that work with Natural Habitats. It's a company that tries to buy and sell palm oil the right way. She was super impressed. You could look for that, but it's a tiny sliver of the market. In general, I think this is one of those problems that people like me can't just consume our way out of. People like me in the United States, most of us probably just need to consume less, period. Though what country consumes the most palm oil? It's India.
As a cooking oil, and then also in all those chips and snacks that they make. But as you may know, there's so many street vendors in India, and when I was over there, it seemed that they were all using palm oil because it was cheaper than the other oils that they could get. And it was interesting because they denied it. At first they said, no, we're not using palm oil, and then I could see the wrapper underneath the, and same with the shopkeepers. I was with a woman from the Public Health Foundation of India, and we went into some shops and asked for cheap oil, and they gave us mustard oil and soy oil, I believe. And then we said, don't you have anything cheaper? At first they said no, and then he said, okay, well, here's the palm oil. So there's the stigma about it, because they sort of know that it's not healthy and because it's not grown domestically, but they're all using it because it's cheaper.
I think it's dumb when we focus our consumption guilt on one product or one ingredient or one company. That's the kind of thinking that leads us to loudly decline something on moral grounds while quietly accepting something just as bad over here, except now with some smug moral superiority mixed in. What you do with this information is up to you, but this is what palm oil is. This is how it ended up in like everything. And this is why some very smart people are very worried about that. Salted versus unsalted butter. Which butter is better to beat into your batter? You better hold that thought while I tell you that this video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one solution for building and running a website. All-in-one. It's like having salted and unsalted butter combined, which really just makes it sound like slightly less salty butter. That's where the analogy kind of breaks down. But anyway, you can save 10% off Squarespace by using my link and code in the description. Today's salted butter is vastly less salty than the butter that most humans have eaten for the thousands of years in which humans have been making salted butter. Salted butter used to be way more salty. Understanding that can help one to understand the surprisingly loaded social dynamics around salted versus unsalted butter. It can also help you understand this humble home cook's opinion that it doesn't really matter which kind of butter you have. You can make either one work in most things as long as you know what kind of butter you have and you adjust accordingly. Milk, of course, has sodium in it naturally, and butter is made from milk. It's the fat extracted from the cream plus some leftover stuff from the cream, some water, proteins, sugars, and minerals, including surely some trace amounts of sodium. Why did people start adding additional salt to the butter in the first place? Probably not for the taste.
You know, salt is the ancient preservative, right? People used it with fish and with meat and all kinds of foods. That's
Elaine Khosrova, a classically trained pastry chef. And what, does she think she wrote the book on butter? Oh wait, she did. It's called Butter, A Rich History.
So butter was a natural to salt if they wanted to keep it for any length of time. The only exception to that is in India and that region. To preserve their butter, they boiled it down to evaporate off the liquid. When there's no water in butter, you don't have bacteria that form there.
She's talking, of course, about ghee, and making ghee was a practical necessity in the Indian subcontinent because it's super hot there. This can't exist in ambient temperatures above like 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius. It just melts. It's not surprising then that the Western tradition of solid butter making probably originates in Northern Europe. Khosrova says that the first European butter makers of note were probably the Vikings, and the salted butter that the Vikings made was saltier than the seas upon which their longboats sailed.
About 10 times as much salt as we have right now. It would not have been edible at all. I mean, eventually it'd be edible because then they would soak it in cold water to leach out the salt.
Let's see what that would have tasted like. 10 times as salty as the salted butter we have now. How much salt do we have now? Well, here's Land O'Lakes salted butter, the single most popular make and model of butter in the United States. The label says it has 90 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon, that's 14 grams. 90 divided by 14,000 is 0.64% salt. If that sounds a little low to you, you gotta remember that salt itself is only about 39% sodium. I totally didn't make that mistake when I was researching this video. Salt is sodium chloride, so we gotta see if I remember basic algebra. 0.39 of x equals 0.64. Divide both sides by 0.39, x equals 1.64. This butter is 1.64% salt. 10 times as salty as that would be 16.4%. So here's a tablespoon of unsalted butter, 14 grams. 16.4% of that is 2.3 grams. Just to make the math a little easier on myself, I'm gonna take away 2.3 grams of butter or thereabouts, replace it with about 2.3 grams of salt. That's about half a teaspoon of good old Morton kosher salt. And yeah, that is so salty. You literally taste nothing but salt. But that's the kind of preservative power you need for, say, the winter when the animals aren't lactating. Or if you're supplying your longboat for a lengthy cruise of the Northumbrian coast. Slaughtering monks and pillaging their trinkets is very calorie-intensive work. And this longboat is not gonna row itself back to Denmark, Bjorn. Oh hey, you ever heard of pickled butter? Elaine Khosrova found a recipe for it in a White House cookbook from the 19th century.
They would take freshly made butter and wrap it in muslin and then soak it in this brine that was full of salt and a little bit of sugar. And that's how they would preserve butter for the president.
Yum! Pretty extreme. But then again, that is probably for winter butter. Summer butter that you might be making for relatively immediate consumption would probably need to be way less salty than that, but it was still a lot saltier than this.
If we go back even to medieval times, table butter was probably 3 times as salty as the butter that we eat now and call salted butter.
Okay, let's make some of that. 1.64 times 3 equals 4.9%. 0.049 times 14 grams of butter equals 0.68% salt. Take that away from the butter, replace it with salt, and yeah, that's pretty salty, but hold on. Let me go get some bread. I think that's pretty good, and this is what table butter was until pretty recently. In these dairy industry trade publications from about 100 years ago, people are talking about their butter being 3 or 4% salt. That's 2 to 3 times as salty as the butter that we have now. Probably the minimum salt that you'd need to keep butter fresh for more than a few days without refrigeration. So what changed between now and then? Refrigeration and industrialization, the growth of large-scale, temperature-controlled logistical networks that could deliver fresh butter to way more people.
Once butter started to be made in creameries, and then ever bigger creameries, and then finally factories, a selling point was to say, they would say, our butter has less salt because we're not covering up anything, like rancidity or just off flavors. There can be a lot of different off flavors in butter. So they could say, no, we have less salt in our butter because it's super fresh.
And this also may have capitalized on a long-standing cultural notion that unsalted butter is fancier. Because guess who'd been making unsalted butter this entire time? The fanciest people of all, at least when it comes to food, the French.
There were 2 particular regions outside of Paris where dairy maids would make a beautiful unsalted butter that was also cultured, and they could sell it for 2-3 times the price of regular salted butter.
Cultured in this context is one of these funny words that kind of sounds like what it means, like ostentatious. The word ostentatious is very ostentatious. Cultured butter is not only enjoyed by people of high culture, it's also made with bacterial cultures. It's fermented, it's tangy like yogurt or cheese. Fermentation is an alternative means of food preservation, also tastes real yummy. So yeah, the French love that, and at least here in the Anglophone world we have this long-standing cultural notion that anything French is high class.
What I also uncovered in my research was that some wealthy families, if they didn't live on a farm and have their own cows and their own butter making, they would contract with a local dairy maid to make unsalted butter just for them. She could bring a small batch of unsalted butter if they wanted that at the table.
Makes sense, right? If something is scarce, it's expensive, and if something is expensive, rich people want it. Prior to refrigeration, unsalted butter that hasn't yet gone bad was a luxury item. You'd think that social attitude would be obviated by the advent of refrigeration, but then something else happened in the 1960s and 70s.
You had this phase where cooking gets a little bit more sophisticated, you know, thanks to Julia Child and Jacques Pepin and, you know, people like that who came along and introduced the American palate to unsalted butter, not just at the table, but cooking as well.
Speaking for myself, I got introduced to unsalted butter a couple of decades later by this guy, Alton Brown. Specifically, this episode of Good Eats. I think Alton Brown's great contribution to American gastronomy was that he pushed the precision of the professional kitchen into the home. He taught us how to measure stuff by weight instead of volume, and he taught us to use unsalted butter for the sake of standardization. If you cook with unsalted butter, you can better control the amount of salt going into your food. I love that man, and I am obviously indebted to him. But a lot of my journey in the kitchen has been about unlearning a lot of the things that Alton Brown taught me. Take butter. I used to cook with unsalted butter exclusively because Alton told me to, but my wife always wanted to have salted butter in the house because that's what she likes to spread on bread. Me personally, I'm a big fan of heterogeneous seasoning. I take a piece of bread, smear on some unsalted butter, and then sprinkle on some super coarse flaky salt. That, to me, is far more delicious than something with homogeneous seasoning throughout it. It's for the same reason that a pretzel with big rocks of salt on it is more delicious than a bread that just has salt evenly dissolved through the dough. But Lauren likes salted butter on her bread, and she is hardly alone in that. So for years, I tried to have both kinds of butter in the house at all times, which was a pain, and I'd often get caught with one and not the other. So one day I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna use salted butter and account for the salt when I am cooking. You can account for it with math. 90 milligrams of salt in a tablespoon, 8 tablespoons in a stick, 8 times 90 is 720 milligrams of salt in this stick right here. That's a pinch. Here's every salted butter they had at my grocery store. 3 of them have 90 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon. The Vermont Creamery has 80 milligrams, and the Kerrygold from Ireland has 100 mils. The President butter that I had to get from the fancy grocery store is the extreme outlier here. It has 110 milligrams of sodium in it, but even that isn't that big of a difference. We're talking about a pretty confined range here. So you could add or subtract that salt from the salt called for in your recipe by using math, or not. If it isn't abundantly clear at this point, I generally avoid doing math at nearly all costs. Luckily, you just don't need that much math here in the home kitchen. You need it in the professional kitchen when your goal is standardization. When you're a professional chef who is managing a team of cooks and you're trying to make sure that they're going to generate the same exact plate of food for dozens of customers night after night after night. That is not our goal here. math, weights, precision ingredients. What they allow you to do is perfectly execute someone else's recipe. But is that what you're going for? I don't think so. I think what you're going for is to make something that you like, and only you know how much salt you like. Salt perception and preference is incredibly variable from person to person, so the better way to season when you're cooking for yourself is just to taste your food. Put in as much butter as you want, salted or not, who cares, then give it a taste, and if it needs more salt, put more in. If it doesn't, don't. Granted, some things are harder to taste while they're in progress, like baked goods. You can't just taste the raw cake or cookie batter. You have to rely on the recipe to tell you how much salt to dissolve in there before you bake it. Or do you? The recipe doesn't know how much salt I like, and I taste raw batters for seasoning all the time. I mean, look, there is some risk of foodborne illness from that, and you certainly shouldn't do it if you're immunosuppressed, but yeah, I taste raw batters all the time. If you're just a little clever about it, it's amazing how many foods you can taste for seasoning before you've lost the opportunity to evenly distribute salt throughout. That's assuming that you want to evenly distribute salt throughout. I love uneven seasoning. People's Exhibit A, the pretzel! In a perfect world, yeah, I think we'd all cook with unsalted butter. Elaine cooks with unsalted butter, but this is not a perfect world. And I think you can make most recipes work with whatever kind of butter you got. Don't believe me? Some guy in his kitchen with a camera? I don't blame you, so take it from Julia Child. She wrote in her 1961 classic, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, quote, "Except for cake frostings and certain desserts for which we have specified unsalted butter, American salted and French butter are interchangeable in cooking." Julia says so if you've got a problem with me on this one, you got a problem with Julia. And let me tell you, if you got a problem with Julia, you got a problem with me. When I write recipes, I often specify salted butter in the ingredient list, but that's not because you can only make it with salted butter. I just want you to know that I used salted butter when I made that for myself. So if you're going to use unsalted butter, you might want to use like half a pinch more salt than I did. Not that you should be relying on my recipe for that anyway, because only you know how much salt you like. Taste your food. When I write recipes, I tend to assume that you're using salted butter for two reasons. One, salted butter is far more popular here in North America and in the UK, which together account for the overwhelming majority of my audience. Reason number two is I figure that if you're an advanced enough cook to be using unsalted butter, then you don't really need to be following my recipe to the letter anyway. You're probably cool enough that you can adjust things for yourself. You don't need me. You already know how to cook. So if you're the kind of person who really wants laboratory precision in your recipes, might I suggest that you start your own recipe website with Squarespace. You go to squarespace.com and just hit Get Started. You can do this part for free. Here's all the templates, stuff for weddings, restaurants, maybe try blogs and podcasts. This one looks good for recipes. And then you go in and you basically just start replacing their words with your words and their pictures with your pictures. Then when you're ready to publish your site or maybe buy a custom domain for it, you can save 10% by going to squarespace.com/Ragusea. And at that point, Squarespace will provide you with all the tools you need to host your website and keep it running, so that you can then run me out of business with my culinary laxity, using salted and unsalted butter like they're interchangeable. Pshaw. Legit, I'm just having fun here. I think there's plenty of room in this world for precise cooking and for just kind of feel it out as you go cooking. Room enough in the world for both. We're not building a bridge here, we're just making our own dinners. Swallow the red pill or the blue pill. Either one is fine.
This video is sponsored by Squarespace. In the beginning, there was no soup, no stew, no braising, no blanching, no poaching, no frying even. When the human ancestor Homo erectus first started cooking their food somewhere in the hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was almost certainly by just jamming it straight into the fire at the end of a stick. Roasting is where cooking all began, dry heating methods. And then somewhere in the tens of thousands of years ago came the Epiphany. Stone soup? Nah, it's called a pot boiler. Hot rocks dropped into some kind of water-safe containment. This is at least one of the ways that people simmered food for many thousands of years, until they got cooking vessels that were both water and fire safe. We're gonna recreate both of these cooking inventions in here. And to be clear, nobody really knows how the first soup or stew was cooked. The methods used for that kind of cooking rot really quickly, and therefore they don't leave much archaeological record. So a lot of this is speculation on the part of scholars who have thought about this for a long time. In 2015, the anthropologist John Speth shook up the thinking on this topic quite a lot. He argued that stew or soup or such might be much older than previously thought. He simply observed, empirically, that you can take a flammable material like an animal hide, you can fill it with wet stuff to cook, hold it directly over a fire, and it won't burn. The water that it's soaked in won't let it burn, even if it's flammable. Certainly my little bit of animal hide was in no danger of burning, in part because the water that it was soaked in dropped down onto the fire beneath it and put the fire out. But maybe ancient people could have figured out a way to do this with something more waterproof and less drippy. Maybe an animal stomach, maybe a woven basket lined with clay, something like that. There is archaeological evidence that Neanderthals ate wet-cooked food. This is a grain of barley recovered from the back teeth of a Neanderthal in modern-day Iraq. And the scientists here conclude it appears to have been boiled. The person who ate this lived maybe 50,000 years ago, which is well before we have the first archaeological indication of anyone doing this arguably more advanced method of wet cooking. I just dug a little hole in the dirt. Then I lined it with a really big leaf, a banana leaf from my Indian grocery. Drop some water into that and check it out. That's holding water, no leaking at all. Now over here, my little fire, I'm gonna drop some stones. Smooth river cobbles were historically a popular choice for this, less likely to chip off little shards into your food. Then you just drop in some grains or whatever food you're trying to boil, grab a couple of sticks and very carefully lift a hot stone into your little basin. Not exactly a rolling boil, we're gonna need some more stones. And I suppose it'd be helpful to have a second person who could get down and blow the ash off the rock before you drop it in, but hey, there's some actual boiling there. When stones are repeatedly heated up and then rapidly cooled down like that, they gradually start to exhibit a characteristic pattern of cracking and glazing that is known as, wait for it, crazing. That's actually where we get the words crazy and crazed. He's all cracked up. Crazed river cobbles first enter the archaeological record about 30,000 years ago, the Upper Paleolithic period. Nobody knows for sure if those stones were used as pot boilers. They may have simply been used as hearthstones, but at some point, pot boilers definitely became a thing. This is a method of cooking that persisted well into the era of written history. Some people still do it today. And I can tell you from experience that it works surprisingly well. Your water is safely away from your fire, so there's no risk of putting your fire out. And with just a hole in a leaf, I was able to get perfectly soft-cooked grains in about an hour. Might seem like a lot of work, but compared to what? I didn't have to grind those grains down into flour using primitive stone tools and then bake them into bread. And any sand or little pebbles or anything mixed in with my grain as a result of, really kind of primitive processing methods, well, it just sinks to the bottom of the water and you just don't have to reach in there and eat it. You just eat what floats to the top. I kind of feel like I'm gonna get cancer from eating all that ash, but hey, you only need to live like 14 years in order to reproduce successfully, so it's all good. But seriously, wet cooking was such an advance for humanity. you're able to extract so much more nutrients from the food because nothing is dripping onto the fire and being wasted. It's all preserved in that broth that you can drink, and you can soften really, really tough foods down into a form that you can chew and digest. You can simply feed more people with soup. Soup is good food. And here's another benefit of stone boiling. Scientists believe this may be the way that ancient Americans invented nixtamalization, the process by which you soak corn in an alkaline solution to remove that waxy hull around the corn and to make hominy grits and tortillas and such. Nixtamalization also renders certain amino acids in the corn more bioavailable to us. If your diet is based almost solely on corn and you don't nixtamalize it, you eventually get this terrible nutritional deficiency disease called pellagra. So nixtamalization is really important, but I've always wondered, how did people first get the idea to treat their food in a caustic alkali? Turns out it might have happened accidentally when they boiled their corn with limestone pot boilers. In 2011, these scientists went to Utah and did an experiment where they boiled corn using the same Cedar Mesa limestone that ancient people there would have used. And the resulting boil water was a strong enough base to nixtamalize the corn. Their experiment doesn't prove it happened that way, but it does prove it could have happened that way. That said, stone boiling in a leaf or an animal skin or something has its obvious disadvantages. There's a reason that we all cook in pots today. Much easier to just throw a pot directly onto the fire. So let's try to recreate the first cooking pot. I've been digging the first level of this terraced vegetable garden into the hill behind my new house. And when I got through a few inches of turf and topsoil, I hit red clay. Hardly surprising, this hill, like most of the land around Knoxville, eventually slopes down to the Tennessee River. And clay is super common in river basins. One of the ways clays form is through the chemical weathering of exposed rock. Rain is slightly acidic because of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Carbonic acid in the rainwater lands on the rocks and it dissolves them a little bit. All those dissolved minerals flow down into river and lake basins, and they flow into deposits that today we call clay. Technically, this might not be clay. It's probably loam clay mixed with silt and sand, which are little bits of minerals with significantly larger grain sizes. If I wanted to make really nice clay, I would dig up that loam, fully dissolve it in lots of water, and then filter out all of the sand and silt grains that are too big to qualify as true clay. But I wanted to do it the way like the first person did it. You gotta figure that first person was just digging a hole for some other reason, maybe to line with leaves and drop in hot rocks.
Maybe I should get in there.
Are you Mario in the pipe?
Yes.
And then if we just keep ourselves in the mindset of this first person, we notice that that clay-rich dirt down there is smooth and plastic. It's moldable. And the wetter pieces are more moldable. So you figure, if I add water to this, I can start molding it into something. You really have to bash it and work it to get the water distributed through. Modern potters call this wedging the clay, and it has many benefits, including working out air bubbles that might cause the piece to crack later. You can also get out any big rocks and such that you come across as you work the water in. Once the clay is wedged, it's smooth and plastic, you just play with it and you figure, hey, I could use a thing for holding other things, and there you go. That was way easier than carving a bowl out of rock or even wood. You let it dry in the sun for a day and it's nice and hard now, but how do I get it off the rock that it's sitting on? A modern potter might use a length of metal wire. You just kind of shimmy it underneath the bottom of the piece to kind of cut it off of the surface that it's stuck to. But the first person doing this didn't have metal wire, so let's think of something else. Let's just bash that up and start from scratch. What we have at this stage is basically mud brick, which is a surprisingly strong material. It was a lot of work for me to get that dissolved into workable clay again. The thing that eventually worked was bashing it with a rock. You can see why people were able to get so far in life only using stone tools. You might say they were living in a whole age of stone. I'll trademark that later. Anyway, there's my second draft pot, and this time let's dry it on some leaves. Yeah, that'll keep it from sticking to anything. And after like a week of drying, this is rock hard. I'm quite sure that somebody then tried to cook in this, And it might have worked. The problem is even very dry clay will dissolve in water. So you would get kind of a muddy broth, and then eventually the clay, the pot, would just kind of melt away. Unless you got it so hot in your cooking fire that you fired it. That's what potters do, right? They fire their clay in a kiln. Extreme high heat changes the chemical structure of the clay into an actual ceramic that is hard and won't dissolve in water. It seems kind of likely to me that people maybe first did that accidentally by using a fire to accelerate the drying of the piece. That maybe is what they were thinking they were doing. Or maybe they actually tried to cook in the dried piece, the water boiled out, the piece stayed in the fire, and it got hot enough to actually turn into a ceramic. To more reliably fire our pot, we're gonna need the first kiln, which would have been a pit. How convenient. We already have a pit where we just dug out our clay. Get a fire going in the pit, and then in goes the dried pot, which I have preheated by letting it sit by the fire. If it heats up too fast, it'll surely crack. Then you just keep feeding that fire, letting glowing hot coals crumple down onto the pot, eventually fully encasing it. It is insane, the heat coming off of that hole, even with no air to feed the fire from below. Then you just leave it, walk away, and here we are about 24 hours later, and the coals are still very hot, and the pot is way too hot to touch. 2 days later, and out it comes, and yep, there's a big old crack up one side. Pottery is hard, but if we just use the other side, we should be able to boil some food. And this time we can boil it directly on the fire instead of shuttling around hot rocks. Scientists used to think pottery like this was first invented 5,000 or 10,000 years ago, and maybe it was in much of the world. But in 2012, scientists announced they had found pottery fragments in a cave in China from 20,000 years ago, by far the oldest find of any real ceramic. They don't know for sure if these were cooking pots, but they did seem to have been used in a fire. Clay pots would have been people's main type of cooking for a long time, well past the Stone Age, into the Bronze and Iron Ages, and into the early modern period. No doubt, metal is better. It is much more thermally conductive, and you don't have to worry as much about it cracking from thermal stress. But until relatively recently, metal was extremely expensive, far too expensive for a normal family's cooking pot. This ceramic pot was a simple, effective, ubiquitous solution to meet a universal need. Much like Squarespace. Clay is all around you and Squarespace is all around you. There's a reason that so many people who need a website of some kind choose to build and run it with Squarespace. It's as easy as digging 6 inches in your backyard. You pick a template suited to your purpose, you throw in your own photos and your text, and then you just drop in whatever additional features you need, like Tock. Check this out. Tock is the new all-in-one reservation system from Squarespace. It's for restaurant and hospitality type businesses, anybody who needs to take reservations or sell tickets online. The pricing for you is flat, so you're not penalized for getting lots of business. You own the data that you get on your customers who use it. It's really worth checking out. Starting a Squarespace site is always free, but when you're ready to pay to take it live or some such, use my code Ragusia at checkout. You're gonna save 10%. Thank you, Squarespace. And thank you, pottery. You were great for many thousands of years. That said, I'm totally going inside and using my stainless steel pan now.
Farming mushrooms is very different from farming nearly any other kind of food, because of course mushrooms aren't plants or animals. The act of growing mushrooms looks and feels much more like growing bacteria in a lab. Fungi aren't bacteria either, they're their own kingdom of life. But the bacteria analogy holds inasmuch as a mushroom farm is much more laboratory than it is field. There is no field because mushrooms don't need light, at least not in the same way that plants do. They aren't photosynthesizing anything. They're not vegetables. Certainly lots of different kinds of mushrooms are cultivated lots of different ways. By showing you one example today, Middle Georgia mushroom in Macon, Georgia. Hunter Pruitt, his grandmothers, and his girlfriend Anna grow mostly oyster and lion's mane mushrooms for local restaurants.
We're bringing
So, you're interested in the differences between Scholar and Sage. Maybe you clicked on this video because you're trying to choose between the two barrier healers releasing an Endwalker, or maybe you're just trying to find a new main job in Final Fantasy XIV and one of these two jobs caught your eye. In this video, we will go over and discuss the differences of Scholar and Sage respectively and give a brief overview of each one. Before delving into Scholar and Sage, it's really important to note that both healers are very similar in playstyle and nature. They share a lot of the same abilities that are just different in name and in essence will function essentially the same. Pick whichever healer resonates with you thematically and enjoy your experience in Eorzea. Scholar is a job in Final Fantasy XIV that was introduced in A Realm Reborn. Together with their fairy, the Scholar works to keep their party alive through the effective and efficient use of healing spells, being able to cover the bases of shielding, mitigating, and healing. Scholar also boasts a large arsenal of off-global healing cooldown abilities, some of which center around their Aetherflow system. They have a tool for almost any occasion and can be the perfect match for any future battles you may face. Scholars wield a book as their main source of weaponry and focus on their tactical wits to get them through every scenario. Sage is a job that is being introduced to Final Fantasy XIV with the coming of Endwalker. Sages are powerful medics hailing from the nation of Sharlayan. With their knowledge of the art of aetherology, sorcery, and a medicine dubbed Somanotics, the Sage is capable of delivering powerful healing magic to their party, increasing their odds of survival through the use of barriers, while simultaneously being able to deliver passive healing through Cardia. Their main source of weaponry are Nolifs, which work in turn by manipulating the aether surrounding them. Like their Scholar brethren, they share a multitude of tools such as potent off-global healing, as well as capabilities akin to Aetherflow abilities in their Adderskull system. When getting into the nitty-gritty details about both jobs, you may see similarities in their toolkits. For example, when looking at their global healing toolkits, we can see that Physic, Adloquium, and Succor are almost exactly the same as Diagnosis, Eucrasian Diagnosis, and Eucrasian Prognosis. The only difference lies in Prognosis, which gives Sage access to a pure heal, akin to White Mage's Medica, something Scholar can only achieve through the use of one of their cooldowns, Emergency Tactics. When taking a glance at their resource management systems, Aetherflow and Adderskull, you'll find that both of these are very comparable in essence. Using Scholar's Aetherflow will generate you 3 stacks of Aetherflow Gauge, which can then be used on healing abilities such as Sacred Soil, Indomitability, Excogitation, and Lustrate, as well as on an ability that deals damage, Energy Drain. Adderskull, on the other hand, is a resource tied to Sage. Adderskull will constantly generate 1 stack every 20 seconds, and upon reaching 3 stacks will stop generating further until a stack is used. Adderskull can also be used on healing abilities such as Caracoli, Ixocoli, Druocoli, and Terracoli. These 4 abilities are very similar to Scholar's Aetherflow healing correspondence. Scholar also has an extra form of resource management known as the Fairy Gauge. Every time you use one Aetherflow ability, it will increase the gauge by 10 points up to a maximum of 100 points. Accumulating Fairy Gauge will enable you to use Fey Union. Fey Union is an ability which will apply a tether from your fairy to the applied target. This tether will then heal the target for a very significant amount every 3 seconds, with each tick costing 10 fairy gauge. With both their healing toolkits and resource management out of the way, let's take a detour to their healing abilities and see how they compare with one another. For reference, the term abilities applies to skills or actions that are on the off global cooldown, whereas spell and weapon skill are skills or actions that are on the global cooldown. Both Scholar and Sage have very powerful healing kits when referencing their abilities. For presenting clear and precise information, we'll go through all the abilities starting from level 1 all the way up to level 90. When talking about these abilities, we'll do a side-by-side comparison with each healer if there's a similar correspondence to the skill. Starting at level 4, you will obtain Embrace and Cardia. Embrace functions as a passive healing source and requires the Scholar to do nothing to utilize it, whereas with Cardia, you have a target-based passive healing source that procs each time you use an offensive spell. At level 20, you will obtain both Whispering Dawn and Physis. Both Whispering Dawn and Physis are regen-based abilities totaling a specific amount of potency over 21 seconds. Whispering Dawn is also executed by the fairy, meaning it can be used when the Scholar is not next to the party and will still apply to its surrounding teammates, something Physis cannot do. At level 35, you will acquire the ability Soteria. Soteria makes each Cardion effect for the next 10 seconds double in potency and has a recast timer of 90 seconds. Now, while Scholar does not have anything at the specific level that can associate with this, Soteria can almost be associated with Fey Union, a level 70 Scholar ability. Fey Union uses the Scholar's fairy gauge and applies a tether to the target, giving them a hefty single target heal of almost equal caliber and potency to Soteria's increase. At level 40, you will obtain a new fairy ability called Fey Illumination. Fey Illumination increases the healing potency of spells by 10% and also reduces magic damage taken by 5%. Sage has no equivalent to this ability, making it unique to Scholar. However, at level 40, Sage also obtains Icarus, an ability that lets you dash to either an enemy or a party member's location. This is very similar to Ethereal Manipulation, and Sage is the only healer with this kind of utility. At level 45, you learn Lustrate and Drocoli, a single target heal costing the use of one Aetherflow or Addersgall stack. At level 50, you obtain Sacred Soil and Caracoli. While these two abilities are very similar in how they are written, they function very differently. Sacred Soil applies an 8 Yalm radius safe zone on the ground that players must stand in to gain the effects of the ability, whereas Caracoli snapshots onto surrounding party members in a 15 Yalm radius around the stage, meaning as long as players are within the radius of Caracoli's initial use, they no longer need to worry about missing it. Both of these abilities will require one stack of Aetherflow and Addersgall respectively. At level 52, you'll acquire Indomitability and Ixocoli. Just like with Lustrate and Drocoli, these two abilities are identical. Both heal for the same amount of potency in a radius of 15 Yalms around themselves, and both require one stack of Aetherflow or Addersgall. Now at level 56, Scholar obtains Deployment Tactics. This ability will deploy the Scholar's Galvanize effect obtained from either Adloquium or Succor from one of the party members to the whole party. This is commonly used on Adloquium to apply substantial barriers to the party. At level 56, however, Sage gets Zoe. Zoe doubles the heal potency of your next healing spell. This can be used similarly to Deployment Tactics. By using it on your Crazian Prognosis, the Sage can apply hefty barriers to surrounding party members. These shields will not quite be as strong as a critical or buffed Galvanize effect spread by Deployment Tactics. This ability can, however, also be used to give your party a very potent burst of healing. With this in mind, the versatility of Zoe can make up for the less potent shielding. At level 58, Emergency Tactics is learned, which transforms the next Galvanize and Catalyze statuses from Adloquium or Succor into flat HP, removing the shield aspect of them and instead applying the intended shield into HP healed. This is very similar to Sage's level 58 skill Pepsis, which functions similarly except turns currently applied shields into flat healing. Pepsis is also not based on the shield's potency as it has a specified potency value. To recap, when using Emergency Tactics, you use it before casting Adloquium and Succor, and when using Pepsis, you use it after you apply your Crazian Diagnosis and your Crazian Prognosis. At level 60, Sage will obtain Physis too. This has a long cooldown and applies a regen totaling a very large amount of potency over 15 seconds, and applies a buff to surrounding party members and self that will increase HP recovery from healing spells by 10%. On the flip side, Scholar gains Dissipation at level 60. Dissipation instantly gives the Scholar 3 stacks of their Aetherflow gauge as well as a 20% increase to their healing spells used until the effect dissipates. The drawback to Dissipation is that it comes at the cost of losing your fairy for the entire duration of it, leaving it with a distinct disadvantage if used without planning. Both of these abilities, while not similar in nature, do fulfill a relatively similar role in their toolkits of both Scholar and Sage. At level 62, you'll obtain both Excogitation and Terra Coli. Excogitation applies a 45-second buff to a targeted player, and once that player's HP falls below 50%, it will then proc a heal upon the target. If the player's HP doesn't fall below 50% after those 45 seconds, then it will still proc automatically upon the timer running out. Terra Coli is slightly different, however, with it being a lesser potency heal that applies the healing instantly instead of it proccing after the player's HP falls below a certain threshold, though it also applies a damage reduction effect of 10% to that player. This gives it a different playstyle than its correspondent, as it can be used for both healing and mitigation. Both of these skills require 1 stack of Aetherflow and Adder's Gall. At level 70, Sage gains access to its first unique ability, Haima. Haima applies 5 stacks of small potency shields for 30 seconds that reapply after being broken. For any stack that is not depleted after the duration of the buff runs out, the target will receive flat healing for each remaining stack. This ability's function is unique to Sage, and Scholar has no equivalent to automatic reapplying shields. At level 74, you'll learn Recitation, an ability that makes your next Adloquium, Succor, Indomitability, or Excogitation consume no resources and make them guaranteed critical hits. For abilities like Succor and Adloquium, they will not cost MP, and for Excogitation and Indomitability, they will not cost an Aetherflow stack. Sage's version of Recitation also comes at level 74 in the form of Rhizomata. While Rhizomata doesn't guarantee a critical hit or remove the resource cost on certain abilities, it gives you 1 stack of Adder's Gall, enabling you to use it on abilities such as Caracoli or Durocoli. At level 76, you'll gain Fey Blessing and Holos. Fey Blessing is a small potency heal that is executed by the fairy, healing around the fairy with a radius of 20 yalms. Holos is very similar, also being a small potency heal, except around the Sage instead with a heal radius of 15 yalms. At level 80, you'll obtain Seraph and Panhaima. Both of these skills are functionally unique, however both are used to apply barriers. Using Summon Seraph replaces your fairy with Seraph, transforming Embrace to Seraphic Veil and giving you access to the ability Consolation. However, using Seraph locks you out of using Fey Blessing, Fey Union, and Dissipation because neither Eos or Selene can be on the field at the same time as Seraph. Panhaima, on the other hand, works very similarly to Haima, except it is an AoE version applying 5 stacks of automatically reapplying shields for 30 seconds to the entire party, and like Haima, for every stack not depleted, the party will be healed for a specified amount at the end of the duration. At level 86, you will learn your healer buff skills in Endwalker, Protraction and Krasis. Protraction increases the maximum HP of the target it's applied to by 10%, while also healing for that difference in HP and also increasing the healing done by all actions by 10%. Krasis, on the other hand, has no HP increase effect, but increases healing done by all actions by 20% instead. At level 90, we get to the capstone abilities for each job in the Endwalker expansion. Scholar gains access to the ability known as Expedient, and Sage gets access to Pneuma. Expedient applies 2 buffs to party members in a 15 yalm radius around the Scholar, one applying a movement speed buff identical to Sprint, and one that reduces damage taken by 10%. Both of these buffs last for 20 seconds. Pneuma, on the other hand, is a spell that has 3 functions to it. It will simultaneously deal damage in a line, heal all nearby party members, as well as apply a 10% damage reduction buff for 20 seconds to the party members affected. When looking at these 2 abilities, they both have the mitigation aspect in common, but they also bring something unique to the table with Expedient's movement speed buff and Pneuma's damaging and healing aspect. So, with that out of the way, we've gone over both Scholar and Sage. Both of these 2 barrier healers are very strong contenders with one another. Scholar has the ability to deploy very strong shields to its party and is able to utilize the fairy to heal even when not near other party members, while Sage is able to execute barrier heals while on the move or in fast applications of one another while having a more ease of access healing toolkit. Which healer are you going to play going into Endwalker?
I'm gonna play Tomike roleplay, esport. Yeah. Just a bunch of naval buffs when you don't even have a shoreline. That's fucking ironic, yeah. Generals, yeah. Simping band. Wait, okay. What? They started the game, bro? Oh man, okay. Fuck it. I kind of want thanks to Grand Admiral Horthy. This mission is from Glorious Kurt. Oh. How do I write? Okay, there we go. I wish the best for the people. I'm gonna LARP all hella people. Fuck it, dude. That is fine. That's fine. Okay. What the fuck is this PP gain, bro? What the fuck? Alright. Do I need to like announce it in the chat too? Like, Hungary wants to receive older claims from further time back, you know, like, do I have to LARP like that? Invite Habsburg, yes, 21 days and then 63 and then, yeah, alright. Oh, wow. Austria-Hungary, Czechoslovakia, oh. Yeah, well, Czechoslovakia agree though, history guy, I don't think so. Alright. LARP the referendum, yes. We demand the rightful union of our people. Okay, well your people it is in there. Fuck it, dude. Alright, it's fine. We'll do it. Then you come and get it. Okay, okay. Yeah, he paired up. Okay. Oh man, alright, we'll see here. But he's also encircled now, Lamau. Did he just bamboozle himself? I mean... I'm already gonna go for this research, dude. Easy clap, man. Alright. Nobody believed in me. Everybody supported the fucking Austria Alta. Yeah. Fuck you all. Yeah? Well, you didn't believe in me or what? You didn't believe in me, huh? You didn't believe in me, huh? Exactly. GG. Alright. Alright. Hello. Yeah? Hello. Rome protocols? What's that? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. I am on war with Czechoslovakia and Romania soon, so yeah, I kind of don't have many choices here. Yeah. The fucking Austrian Prime Minister needs help. Alright. Will I camp from that? No, I'll not. Cool. Cool. I'm in a defensive war too. Probably not. Be fine. I actually just encircled 6 divisions, so... do that. I just killed 6 Czechoslovakian. Alright, boy. Boy. They will fucking regret this shit, dude. I'm not even kidding, dude. They will regret a lot of shit here.
What do you think, Austria-Hungary? Can we get them to join the war?
Who?
Oh, unfortunately, Yugoslavia is.
What is this? This is Border Gore Deluxe. Look at the Yugoslavia. Holy crap. What the fuck? Holy shit, dude. Hey. Wait, what stonks? Stonks. 500 stonks. Alright.
Yeah, I'll hold it.
No, I'm not gonna push it. I'm just gonna click him to show dominance, you know? And this is all my core territory. You see Czechoslovakia, man. Yeah. Just gonna go and retake it real quick. Okay, bro? Yeah, thank you. The counterattack of Dankus, which he did not expect. Motherfucker. Holy shit, I get up against struggle after struggle, dude, and I beat them all. I beat every single struggle I get up against, dude. Yeah, these are encircled now, so... I just encircled like 30 divs up here. No, not 20, but almost, yeah. Well... that was that faction down. One faction down, you know? Yeah. They made this so much easier for me, dude. They declared on me and I just annexed them, dude. Alright, sure. Should I talk to Germany about any of this, or... Nah. Dude, my industry just fucking boomed. What the fuck? My industry actually boomed. Claim Transylvania. There we go, baby. Alright, going for him. Going for him, boy. Big fish to fuck, yes, I know, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant,
Yeah. Hello, Mr. France. I would like you to think over your actions right now.
Oh, this is not my conception of diplomacy, sir. But,
Defend a nation who has been so aggressive. How does that support the people in any way?
Salad?
Yeah, what's up, Salad? I'm over here like, huh? A supervisor offer you $100? Aren't you on top of supervisor?
100 on top of my hourly rate.
Oh, okay. Because
So-
you're like higher authority than a supervisor.
No.
You're not?
I'm below supervisor.
I thought manager was supposed to be above.